guys, welcome to Red50. Thank you for tuning into another video. If you're new to the channel, thank you for stopping by. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. So in today's video, we're going to be learning how to use the paddle shifters on your Mustang, whether you've got the Mustang GT, Mustang EcoBoost, or the Mustang V6. This applies to all Mustangs for the S550 Mustang generation, because with the S550 Mustang generation, any automatic transmission available for your Mustang GT, EcoBoost, V6 had these paddle shifters standard, which means you can have a lot more fun with your Mustang than you previously could with your automatic transmission. In my case, I have a 2019 Mustang GT with the 10-speed transmission, and I have to say the response on these paddle shifters is pretty impressive coming from a regular automatic transmission. I know the 6R80 also had a great transmission. It had like a really good response, but if you got a 10-speed, you're definitely going to enjoy it a lot more than any other Mustang you have with the automatic transmission. So right off the bat, I want to give you some of the basics on the paddle shifters, and we'll go out on the road. We'll learn how to upshift your Mustang using the paddle shifters, how to downshift the Mustang using the paddle shifters, and how the different drive modes can impact how the paddle shifters are operating. But if you use in sport mode, it gives you full manual control, as opposed to other modes, which it will pop out, and you'll see what I mean in a little while. All right, so here's the steering wheel on your Mustang. On the right side, you're gonna have the plus sign, which is for upshifting, so you're gonna pull it towards you to upshift the gear. Here you've got the minus sign, which is for downshifting. You're gonna pull it towards you to downshift the gear. When you're upshifting, basically, you wanna make sure you're not hitting the rev limiter. So for starter purposes, this is your red line in my Mustang GT is about 7,400 RPM. So every time I'm revving it out, I need to shift before that. So it can be 6,000, 7,000, it does not matter. Now for downshifting, it gets a little tricky because when you put downshift, it revs up your gear, but it's kind of difficult to pinpoint where it's gonna land. So I wanna say for starters, if you're just starting off, make sure you're not downshifting unless you're at 4,000 or below RPM, which gives you a safety net of about 3,400 RPM. So that's gonna differ from, you know, the different engine option, how it's tuned, and if you've got a 6-speed automatic transmission or the 10-speed. So I just want to play it safe. Just do it at 4,000, and as you get a hang of it, of course, you can increase the RPMs. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get on the road. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm gonna put it in sport mode. Right now it's drive. I'll go over the difference in between both later in the video, but for sport, basically allows you full manual control. So I don't want to put it in drive mode or sport plus mode, because it's gonna keep popping out of the gear if I'm not using the paddle shifters actively. Whereas in sport mode allows me to retain that. So we're gonna be using sport mode so I can really demo it, and we're gonna give you examples of upshifting, downshifting, and some precautions to use so you don't mess up anything on your engine. Let's go and get started. Okay, so I'm gonna activate the paddles by this, and then now it's gonna be fully engaged in paddle shift. So let's go over the upshifting real quick. I would upshift around 3,000 RPM just to be on the safe side. Go to like 4,000, but no more than that. As you can see, it's really easy, and the paddle shifter response in these 2019 Mustang GTs or any S550 Mustang GT with the 10-speed transmission is actually pretty instant, which makes it really fun to drive. So here I'm going on 7th gear, gonna go ahead and tap it again, back to 8. Go all the way up to 10th gear like this, 9th gear, and we'll go to 10th. All right, so now I want to talk about the downshifting, which is the same process. You want to make sure you don't rev out too much. So you want to, with the upshifting, you want it to be before 7,400 RPM. With the downshiftting, you don't want to hit that. So it's a little tricky with that because you don't know how much RPMs are going to climb. So I'm in 10th gear, I'm going to go ahead and start downshifting. So 9, you saw the RPMs barely increased, so we've got tons of more room. And as you downshift, you can feel the car is starting to get in the power band. So 6. You do one more. It's still within the range. And I'm gonna go ahead and downshift one more time. So fun, especially with the Corsa Extremes. It's really fun. As you get into lower gears, the RPMs are going to shoot up a lot more than they are in a higher gear. So I'm in 4th gear now, around 4,000 RPM. I'll go ahead and downshift to 3rd, and it should jump up significantly. You can see it's almost 5,000 RPM. upshift back to normal gear. So 5th gear, 6th, drop it to 7th. Now the good thing about these paddle shifters is while you can use them however you want to, as you're coming to a stop, like I will be right now, it will downshift it for you. You can downshift it manually if you wanted to, but as I'm not gonna use the paddle shifters, just tapping brakes, you can see it drop to 6th, 5th, and 4th, 3rd, boom. And you can see it's just dropping to 1st gear. So you can obviously choose to manually downshift if you wanted to. This allows, it's just one less thing to worry about as you're just starting out with the paddle shifters on your Mustang. And you can see it's down to 1. Now, since we are in sport mode, I am gonna have to shift. If you don't shift with the paddle shifter, it's gonna actually hit the rev limiter, which is not fun. So you don't wanna do that to your engine. So make sure you do shift because you are currently in paddle shifter mode. So now we've got a stretch going back, and I want you to focus on upshifting and downshifting as I use both of them. And just kind of get an idea of what the engine does as I tap the upshifting and the downshifting throughout the course. So we'll go ahead and make that U-turn and go get that stretch. No commentary, just focus on the engine, RPM, and all that stuff. Saw from those clips, I mean, it's really fun to be using paddle shifters. It's just, with more practice, you'll get really good with it. So as you're starting off, you want to target 3,000 to 4,000 RPM as your benchmark, just so you can get a hang of what the car does as you're upshifting and downshifting in various gears, various RPM, and you know, the speed. But once you get comfortable, just saw I was taking the 6,000, 7,000 RPM shifting without any problem, because you kind of get a hang of it after so while. Don't be afraid to use paddle shifters. They really make it fun. And if you've never used a manual transmission car or paddle shifters, you might think it's not good to rev out your car, but trust me, engine can totally handle it. As long as you're not hitting the rev limiter constantly, you're gonna be totally fine, and it's gonna just make your Mustang so much more fun to drive than without it. Now what I'm gonna do is put it back into drive mode, which is from this here. As you can see, it's drive now. So I don't have paddle shifters right now, but I will activate it, and I'll show you what happens if you don't use it for a while. So I'm in 8th gear, let's downshift to 7. And just, I'm not gonna touch the paddles. And you can see it just went back. So this is a very good feature, because if you are someone who doesn't really wanna use paddle shifters on a daily basis and you accidentally hit the paddle shifters, the car detects that and eventually just shifts for you because it realizes you're not actively using paddle shifters. However, in sport mode, like we talked about, it's completely manual control. It's not gonna shift for you until you're coming to a stop sign or like a stoplight, like in this case, it will drop it for you, but otherwise it's fully manual control. So you need to be knowing what you're doing. So I recommend starting in D or drive mode, so that if you're using paddle shifters, you kind of get confused or nervous, you don't have to worry about it, and you just kind of be like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing, just back out of it, and it's just gonna revert back. With sport mode, if you're just starting out, it can be a little tricky, and just making sure your engine is protected, you're not doing anything stupid and causing engine damage by, you know, revving it out and constantly hitting the rev limiter, which is not good for your car's engine. Well guys, there you have it on how to use the paddle shifters on your Mustang. Doesn't matter whether you got the Mustang EcoBoost, GT, or the V6, as long as you got S550 Mustang with these paddle shifters, the tutorial works for you. I have to say, using the paddle shifters on the Mustang makes it very fun to drive. I used to have a 2006 Mustang GT with the automatic transmission, no paddle shifters in that one, obviously, and it wasn't as fun. I mean, if you wanted to floor it, it was fun, but just having, you know, if you had back roads or kind of, you know, windy roads, you just couldn't enjoy it as much, whereas this one, 10-speed transmission with the paddle shifters makes it very insanely fun to drive. The good thing about it is that it's very responsive. It's not like you've got paddle shifter just for the sake of having paddle shifters. They're pretty responsive, and yeah, it's not going to be like a dual clutch transmission, but I want to say it's responsive enough where you can still have fun with it on the back roads and the, you know, windy roads and all of that stuff, and just makes your Mustang that much more fun. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure you smash that like button, comment below what do you think about the paddle shifters in the Mustang, and as always, subscribe to Red 50 for more content.